Hi, my name is Josh Hoffman. Born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Went to the Gilman School, UMBC, and then Messiah College. I'm the head boys lacrosse coach at Valor Christian High School, and prior to that was on staff with FCA Lacrosse for about 6 years, doing team ministry and international ministry. Okay, hi, my name is Josh Hoffman. We're here in beautiful Piney River Ranch in the mountains of Colorado, just outside Vail of Baltimore, Maryland. Let's see, I went to Gilman School in high school, ended up at Messiah College after kind of a little bit of a rough go as we started. Let's see, in high school, I'd say the entirety of my identity was quite honestly based in sport. So I played football, I wrestled, and I played lacrosse, and I think I've been playing lacrosse since I was probably, I don't know, four or 5 years old. Growing up in Baltimore, my dad played back in the day. For those who might remember the Mill, it was the MILL, Major Indoor Lacrosse League. So I grew up as a little kid running around the Baltimore arena when he was playing for a team called the Baltimore Thunder in the original pro indoor days. And he played for a team for the Wave before that. So I've kind of always known lacrosse. I can't honestly even remember. It's always been a part of my life. And that for sure was a big part of my identity growing up. And really, I think the primary focus of my identity for most of my years up until my freshman year of college, really. And it wasn't until I graduated from Gilman, went to Naval Academy Prep School first, and really struggled. I think that's one of the things that God used to kind of bring some brokenness, and there was already a lot of brokenness in my life at that point in time. I think I'd say the majority of my existence was based on finding my identity in sport. And then finding my identity in a social setting, finding my identity, in the opinions of others. And then really, at the end of the day, I think the Navy experience was something that kind of broke me. And it's hard to say that in some ways because I grew up in Baltimore and I've always had such a great appreciation for those who serve our armed forces and in the Navy, Army, et cetera. And I thought it was going to be me, but it was one of the things that God really used. And there was one night specifically that I remember God, really speaking to my heart and really felt like I call it, it's like a let's make a deal prayer. It was like probably one of the first times I remember calling out to God. And at the time, before this, I'd been living, the life where my identity was focused in lacrosse. It was focused in really just partying, getting out, drinking, smoking, hooking up, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, was leaving me empty, And so, yeah, I end up at Navy Prep up in Newport, and I was soon thereafter back in Baltimore at UMBC my freshman year, and pretty much back to doing the exact same thing that I had been doing. But there was one night specifically at Navy Prep that I remember praying and saying, God, I promise I'll change my life, if you just get me out of this, as I said, I went back to Baltimore immediately. Was doing the same thing that I had been doing when I was in high school, and it wasn't that long after that I think more of that brokenness came, and it was actually at UMBC where I actually met a bunch of guys through FCA, and within probably the first week of being at UMBC, we were at a lacrosse house off campus, and there was two guys that I met, and that was first Matt Hall, who on that night, wasn't drinking anything, and for me that was kind of a really strange thing. I was like, there's a lacrosse player that doesn't drink, and for me that was like a big thing. That was a part of who I was too, and I just thought it was kind of a normal thing. So I ended up actually giving him a really hard time about not doing so, and he basically said, well, I'm a Christian, and we started having conversations about his faith, and within probably 15-20 minutes of having that conversation, I met Franklin Berry, and he was just a great guy. I started talking to him again. What stood out in that moment just happened to be the fact that he wasn't drinking. It was kind of like, what are you doing, And so having that conversation very quickly led to, I'm a Christian, and I'm trying to figure out what that means, and I'm just not doing that stuff right now, And it wasn't that Franklin or Matt were perfect, and they'd be the first people to tell you that, but they were, trying to figure out what it meant to be a follower of Christ and pursue Jesus. From that point in time, I really had this moment at that party in this lacrosse house at UMBC, where I was feeling good and kind of feeling myself, if you will, and then literally walked away from those conversations and immediately felt sick, like I got hit like a brick wall. I mean, it was like this immediate moment of feeling good to walk away from that conversation and feeling like what just happened to me. And I ended up going home, kind of wandered or stumbled back to my dorm and just kind of thought, hey, I need to sleep this off. And, that would have been late Saturday night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and went home, took a shower, and next thing you know, was in bed. And I kind of just felt like, hey, at this point in time, let's just move forward. I woke up the next morning at about 7:30 in the morning with just the most intense feeling of conviction that I probably had felt my entire life. And it was one of these moments where I really felt like I had this divine supernatural perspective. I call it a veil moment. Like all of a sudden it's up and you're seeing your life in full perspective. And it was one of those moments where I just knew change was needed, and I knew that something had to change in my life and that I wasn't living the way that God was calling me to, and that there was something missing. And so I remember calling my mom up, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, and I was not walking with Jesus. And the first thing I said to my mom was, hey, I want to go to church. Well, her immediate response was something like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, right? So we probably at this point in time, my family was living on the Gilman School campus, and still are to this day. I think that was probably about 30 minutes away. I think she was there in about 20 minutes. So she was quick to get there and pick me up. And, the questions ensued of like, well, you smell like a brewery, and like, what are you doing? And like what's happening? Like, are you in trouble? Did you get arrested? Is somebody pregnant? And I'm like, Mom, like, we're going to church. Like, that should be enough for you. Like, let's just go. And so we drove to church that morning. The questions the entire way there. We get there, the door opens up. I think she's still asking me questions. And I just remember going and sitting in the back right-hand corner of my church up in Timonium. And I really, to this day, I could not tell you, I can't remember for the life of me what the message was about. But I just remember that there was going to be this point in the sermon, or at the end of the sermon, where the pastor would get up and say, hey, if you've not made a decision to follow Jesus, then I want you to pray this prayer with me. And there's nothing magical about the prayer, but like, you need to make a conscious decision and ask Jesus to come into your heart. And so I just remember, sitting there and kind of being like, okay, like, get to the prayer thing, like, so I can do the prayer thing, and let's go, let's get this going, right? And so, I remember that moment coming, and it was not one of these moments where all of a sudden, the church roof split open and like a beam of light shot down, and I was like, whoa, and I started levitating or anything like that. But I fully believe that when I prayed that prayer that morning, or on September 9th, 2001, that something did change, and that there was something miraculous that happened, and that the Holy Spirit did come and live inside of me. And I've been in a growth process ever since, and trying to figure out what it means to be a follower of Jesus, and continue to pursue Christ and grow my relationship with Christ, and that, God willing, will continue to be a lifelong process. So, at that point in time, I made a decision to follow Jesus, and ultimately was grateful to be back at UMBC, where I had a bunch of guys around me who could help love on me and give me nudges in the right direction and support me. And John Smith was one of those guys, both as a Young Life guy and an FCA guy that did that in my life. And so super grateful for John and the many people who have been in my life, continuing to point me towards Jesus since. So, summer after my freshman year, I played in a tournament up at Lake Placid. It was the first time that FCA had ever had a tournament in the Open up in Lake Placid. Met an unbelievable group of Christian guys from other schools. And that was a massively life-impacting experience for me. Met some guys from Messiah as well, and that was a big part of why I ended up transferring and really wanted to be a part of that fellowship. And ended up graduating from Messiah, and really, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up coaching at Messiah for 2 years. Ended up working in international ministry at an international school in Bangkok, Thailand for about 2 years, doing campus ministry. And when I got back, that's actually when I came on staff with FCA. And I was on staff with FCA and coaching at Calvert Hall for about 6 years. And that was a massive growth period. And I really got the opportunity to really, enjoy, coaching, and really enjoy working with young people, and really having that, a fulfillment to what I feel God had called me to do. Just to invest in the lives of the young men and the young kids that I've had a chance to work with kids that are elementary school and middle school and high school, and had the opportunity to coach. I mean, literally thousands of kids with FCA over the years while I was in college, through up to this day, with some unbelievable people. And so FCA has always had a massive place in my life. It had a massive impact on me, and I feel like I've had an opportunity to to love on and walk alongside, as I said, really hundreds and thousands of kids, over the years that I've worked with FCA. And it's just been a real blessing. That's been, something I feel God called me to. It's part of why I went to Messiah in the first place, and I really feel like I've had the opportunity to walk that out, to coach the heck out of kids, but also just to love on them and walk alongside them and continue to point them to Jesus, to share my story and share my talents and, my treasure and whatever else God gives me, just trying to have that open hand mentality, So it's just been a real blessing for me, and I think this is probably my 10th or 12th time, honestly, up here at Piney River Ranch up here in Colorado as well, and had the opportunity to work with kids, here in Colorado and up in Placid and, in Costa Rica and Nicaragua and honestly places all over the world. So it's just been honestly a massive blessing, and now I just happen to live here in Colorado and I get to enjoy it as I continue to coach at Valor. So.